first thing I'm gonna do is apply a little concealer. It's one of those makeup tricks that has been around for so long and you stop using it and then you remember it's actually kind of great. So the eyeshadow palette that I'm using is the Persona Cosmetics Identity 2 palette. There's the Identity 1, this is the follow-up palette. My favorite thing about this palette is that it has a really black eyeshadow. For some reason, I feel like it's hard to find a palette with like a dark black eyeshadow and a really nice blendable one. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into Loyal, which is gonna be our transition shade. And I'm gonna start working that into my crease as usual. This is almost always gonna be my very first step with pretty much any eye makeup look, definitely a smoky eye look. If you're hearing the pitter patter of dog feet right now, it's because my little rescue Piglet is in the room. Piglet. All right. And I'm gonna be pretty liberal with how much of this I'm putting on, because the more of that transition color you have on, the easier everything else is gonna be to blend. One thing I always do when I'm doing a smoky eye is I have just a clean blending brush on hand. So with every step, I pretty much just go in and blend out the edges, make sure it looks nice and smooth. Next up, I'm taking a smaller blending brush and I'm gonna go into Passionate. We're gonna keep this look pretty warm. I'm just gonna work that into the outer corner of the crease. A little bit into the lid too. And just blend it in with the center, or toward the center. And of course, keep blending as you go. So again, outer corner, blending in toward the center. And that warmth is gonna come through once we start building the other colors over it. Piglet, don't eat anything off the floor. The worst is when they look so innocent, but they're like the biggest troublemakers. Yeah, I see you. So the next step, actually, we're gonna take a break from eyeshadow and we're gonna move on to liner. One, because this is such a great liner, it's pretty new from Charlotte Tilbury. It's called the Pillow Talk eyeliner. It's just a really nice, deep aubergine shade, and it's super smooth and blendable. So with this, because sometimes eyeshadow with a smoky look tends to blend with everything else, I wanna lay this down first so that whatever's closer to the lash line is gonna be much deeper. So with this, I'm really just gonna lay it down all over the lash line. You can be messy about it doesn't have to be nice. And then we're gonna blend to make this nice and smoky. And it really doesn't take much because it is so smooth and blendable. And again, the other side. Almost all the way to the inner corner. And then just with your finger. I've noticed blending with a brush doesn't really give me the same outcome. But blending with my finger, it's always perfect. So you could actually just stop there. It's actually a nice, soft, warm, kind of like orangey purple look. And then actually you could go down and put a little more of the liner right at the lash line. Just so you have a little extra definition. So now as I layer over with the shadows, the darker shadows, they're just gonna show up that much more. And then I'm still gonna have that warmth coming through because of that purple tone. All right, moving on to more shadow. I'm gonna use that same brush and dip into Brave. And with this, we're gonna keep working on this outer corner here. Just adding more depth. And then working it toward the center again. So taking that blending brush, I'm just gonna blend out the edges of this darker shade. And actually adding a little bit more of Passionate, just to make it extra blended. And then with whatever's left on the brush, I'm just gonna push everything in toward the inner corner, because I definitely want to add some of that darkness to the inner corner as well, but if I take the shadow and add it, it's going to be too much. So I just use the residual shadow that's left. It's such a delicate process doing a smoky eye. It really is so, like, it requires a lot of precision. So going back to the other side, we're going to add Brave. Again, starting closer to the lash line at the outer corner, and then using small circular motions, just nudging it over and across. So think about when you load up your brush with eyeshadow, you have to start wherever you want the color the most concentrated. So I want it the darkest right here, obviously. So I start here, and then I start pushing my way over and across the crease, just so I get less color here. So never start somewhere where you don't want as much color. Always end there. When you're doing a smoky eye, it's a lot of picking up, putting down brushes over and over again. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. Now, moving on. I want to use Empowered, which is this purple shade. Just using the same brush. I'm gonna add this toward the center. So I'm gonna use it to blend out the edges of the brown and then move toward the center of the eye. It's just such a nice touch for like a deep smoky eye. And you're gonna get that purple kind of going toward the center of the crease. I mean the inner corner of the crease as well. So I'm using this to blend. And then add that purple. Especially if you have brown eyes, purple tones really bring out that hazelness to them. It brings out all the green that you have in brown eyes. And there's two shades that look really pretty in this palette if you mix them together. Honest and Resilient. These are both shimmer shades, so shimmer shades are always easy to mix. You can always mix them up. And with this, I'm gonna add this to the inner part of my lid, just to give it that lighter shimmer. And then taking Honest by itself and just popping it into the inner corner. So now taking a small smudge brush, I'm going to dip into Limitless, which is that deep matte black. And this we're going to press into the lash line toward the outer corner. And then using that last brush, you can blend it out. But it's just really gonna give you that extra depth and definition. I almost never use like a black liner over a smoky eye, because I feel like you can achieve the same look with a shadow and your blend is going to be much better than it would be with a pencil. Pencils, I don't know if any of you notice this, sometimes when you layer a pencil over shadow, it's not blendable. Like you can't actually, it messes up the whole eyeshadow look. So that's why I layered the pencil in the beginning before the eyeshadows. So don't waste your time putting a black liner over eyeshadow because you're gonna mess up all the work that you did. So now I'm gonna clean up everything all the fallout on my face and move on to the foundation, concealer and all that, and then we'll finish up with the bottom lash line. So for the foundation, I'm gonna use one of my all-time favorites, the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. I'm a little lighter now than the rest of the year, so I'm using the color 6.5. And by the way, 6.5 is an olive girl's best friend. If you like the Luminous Silk and you're olive, that's most likely your color. So I'm just gonna dab this all over my face. And I'm using this giant sponge. This is by Hank & Henry. It's been my favorite makeup sponge ever since I got it. I have the mini version too, which I'll use in a little bit, but I really like this sponge. As far as sponge versus brush, it's really a matter of preference. Obviously, if you're using a sponge, it's gonna eat up more of your product, but I feel like it gets the job done quicker, and especially a giant one like this. And sometimes I take the brush or the sponge and use it to just kind of blend out the edges of the shadow. It does a good job, actually. I'm gonna use the Dose of Colors Meet Your Hue concealer in the number 16. This is the medium tan. This has kind of been my go-to concealer lately. It works really well. I really want to focus the concealer on that outer corner of the eye where I get a little bit of darkness. And then just generally the center of my face. And then using a brush, I'm just going to blend this out. We're gonna go a little heavy on the concealer because it is a smoky eye look. So the more flawless your face, the more, you know, your eye makeup's gonna stand out. Like, look at what a difference concealer makes. It just really makes the smoky eye look really sharp and pretty. All right, next I'm gonna go for contour using another product that I used to use all the time and stopped using for a while. This is the Ultra HD foundation stick from Makeup Forever in the color Y505. And since I put on quite a bit of weight, let's really go for it. So I'm just using this brush to blend out. And again, because it is a smoky eye look, I'm kind of going a little heavy on the contour. And again, you can always use your foundation brush or sponge to blend it out a little bit more. And anytime you're blending out a contour, blend it up and in. Don't blend it downward. I definitely put on way too much, so I'm gonna use my foundation sponge to calm it down a little bit. So next is a step that you don't see me do often, especially in this particular way. So I'm gonna take the CoverFX Perfect Setting Powder and I'm gonna dump a little bit of this into the cap here. So I'm gonna take the mini version of that Hank and Henry sponge. And the reason I like this is because it's super small. You can really get into the inner part of your eye and just really set that concealer. I've kind of been doing this a lot. Never thought I'd see the day. And I don't really like bake it that much. I just like let it sit for like a few seconds and then I'll go back and blend it out. And then with whatever's left on the sponge, I'll just kind of dab along the, you know, the usual center of the face parts. So let's add a little life to this look. I'm gonna take this brush right here and using this palette by Laura Mercier, this has kind of been like a go-to for me. I really like it. I'm gonna use this blush here and just add a little color to my cheeks. It's a really soft blush. I really like it. And then I usually kind of mix these two for highlight. And you can see I'm just using the same brush because it really makes no difference. And you still get that really pretty highlight. Okay, I think we're done with the face. So what I want to do is first set it, and then we can move on to the bottom lash line and mascara. Don't ever put setting powder on or setting spray on after you put on your mascara, because there's a good chance it's gonna make it bleed. So the one I'm using is by Smashbox. It's their Photo Finish Setting Spray. So now moving on to the bottom lash line, we're going back to the Identity 2 palette. So with this, I want to, what brush am I gonna use? So I'm gonna take this brush, it's got a concentrated tip, and I'm gonna take Loyal, just right on the tip of the brush, and use this to, I mean, this is pretty much a transition color for the bottom lash line, so I can layer with a few darker colors. Just get it all the way across. And then taking my smudge brush again, I'm actually gonna go into Passionate. Just add that all along the lower lash line. And then I think I'm gonna take Empowered as well and add even less of that. Just really giving me that purple. And that shimmer is gonna look really pretty on the bottom lash line. All right, we're ready to move on to mascara. We're not doing lashes. I feel like I don't really do lashes anymore. If I do, they're usually individuals. For the mascara, I'm using the Faux mascara from YSL. Such a perfect mascara for like really dramatic lashes. Man, this mascara does not play. It's so nice. And then, since I need it right now, since I don't have the brow lamination, I'm gonna use the Hourglass Arch Brow Gel just to sort of set these. I'm telling you, when I have the brow lift, I don't have to do anything to my brows. The less I have to do, the happier I am, let's be honest. All right, moving on to lips. I'm gonna use the Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat in Iconic, right? It's called Iconic. Iconic Nude. And then I'm gonna use the Haus Labs lip gloss in Corset. I really like these glosses. They're really glossy and opaque. And this is kind of the perfect color for an eye look like this. So that's it for this smoky eye look. I love a good brownish purple smoky eye. And I really like the way this one turned out. It's like not too heavy, it's just enough. Thank you for bearing with me all this time. I'll be back with more videos. We're gonna switch it up, do some things a little bit differently, do some chatty videos, so stick around.